Hello, fellow human. I have something new to talk to you about today. Very exciting. It's books, which is awesome. So in 2019, I don't remember what the figure was, but I saw a YouTube video that gave me a startling figure about how many books you could read if you read at a consistent pace for the rest of your life every day. It was only in like the couple thousands. Like, it was not very high. And it kind of sent me into a quarter life crisis because I was like, I've never actually done the math on how much of anything that I can do in the rest of my life. So when I did the math and realized realistically, if I consistently read every day, however many pages a day, I could only read like a few thousand books. I was like, oh my God, what if my favorite book is out there and I'll just never get to it? It's possible that my favorite story in general is out there and I'll never get to it. And so it sort of sent me into like a full on nerd mode where I was like, I have to read everything. I have to read every book that I can find because it might turn out that I'm going to miss the best book ever. I can't do that. It spread like a sickness. I was like, oh my God, I have to experience everything. So, of course, after that YouTube video, I started looking for books to read because like I knew I wanted to read books, but I never read books for fun throughout my entire life. I didn't hate reading, but it was not, it's not an easy thing to do. You don't just most people anyway, you don't get home and think, man, today was really tiring. I want to read. It's like, I want to go have fun or do something cool. Reading was just not really on the radar. And besides, I always had video games. So it's like, let's play video games. Through the cosmos' infinite wisdom, I was introduced to Brandon Sanderson through one of the booktubers. I think it might have been Daniel Green doing like a Cosmere roundup or something. I don't know. Either way, Warbreaker ended up being the book that pulled me out of my quarter life book crisis. Of course, I got the UK edition, as you saw, because I think they look a lot better. I just knocked a bunch of shit over. I got the UK edition, as you can see, because I think it just looks way better than the US editions. So I read Warbreaker, and I really liked it. And of course, a lot of people said that's where you should start, and then get into the Cosmere. And funny enough, the second book I read from Brandon was Skyward. It wasn't in the Cosmere, it was sci-fi. I've always been a fantasy sci-fi fan, but I would put myself like 60 sci-fi, 40 fantasy, probably in terms of percentage. So I kind of thought it's sci-fi and it's by a guy who I already read a book from that I liked, so maybe I'll like this one too. And it ended up being probably still my favorite book I have read. You can kind of see over here, you can see a little bit of a tip of one of my bookshelves. But there are 3 of that shelf in this room. It's just a line. It's just a rectangle on a wall. With about probably 3-4 dozen books. So I haven't read a bunch of books, but I've read a couple dozen. And still, Skyward is easily, if not my favorite book, it's in my top 3. Yes, I've read Stormlight Archive. It's in there. It's in the top 3 somewhere. I would say Skyward, Rage of Dragons, and probably The Way of Kings are like my top 3, and I could probably never give any of them the number 1 spot because they'll just be fighting over it in my brain. From Skyward, then I went back into the Cosmere, which ended up being quite the bug because now, 2 years later, or maybe 1.5 years later after I actually started reading for fun, I've read every Cosmere book, short story, everything that I know of that exists, I have read, including the Arcanum Unbounded and Dawnshard, and I still love it. And it kind of freaks me out. Brandon can only write so fast, and if you do the math on that, I'll be somewhere in my 40s by time the Cosmere is like over, based on the the ground plan he's kind of already stated. And that's pretty insane because I'm 23 right now, and I'm like, wow, it's gonna be like 20 years before I can finish all these books. That's insane. Not even to mention the books that I don't know about, that I haven't found. There are surely thousands that I would absolutely love that I just don't know about. Well, Skyward is a good example, actually. Skyward, that was the first time I ever read a book and I felt my heart rate elevate. This existed, and I wouldn't have known if I didn't try it, which is pretty wild. And that kind of forced me through books to think about everything that way, which is kind of counterintuitive. You'd think, you start reading books like crazy and you become a shut-in and you become even more of a homebody. Like, I already just played video games all the time, so it's like Video games and books, okay, yeah, good luck ever leaving the house again. That's kind of not how it worked. It kind of went the opposite way, because that whole book crisis kind of got me into the mindset of how much am I going to miss regarding literally everything in life if I just don't try anything. Which is kind of, I hate when people say don't knock it till you try it, because there are so many things that I could knock right now that I don't need to try. Like, I really don't need to try it. There's so much stuff that you could do, and you probably never will. And it's not really because you can't or because you know it won't be fun, but just because it's unknown. It's not something you have done, or it's not something you regularly do. And so it's sort of like, yeah, whatever. No thanks. No, I don't want it. I see that in a lot of things that I now have been like, holy crap, that was amazing. I'm really glad I tried it. Maybe I should try something else. I started reading a lot more in 2020. And of course, I had plenty of time to read in 2020. And from then on, I was kind of like, you know what? Maybe I should do this with everything. Maybe I should just pick a thing every year and be like, how much of this can I get done in my life? Only that much? Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of it and see if I like it. There's always going to be something that you're going to miss. So you kind of got to balance that fear of missing out. Like, I kind of went wild with it and was like, I'm going to read 100 books this year. And then I was like, well, what am I really doing? Am I trying to have fun looking for books to enjoy? Or am I trying to look through this needle in a haystack kind of situation where I'm going to scour the earth of books until I'm like, yeah, that one was probably the best I'll ever read. I'm done. So, little tidbit of the day. If you want to drink a lot of water and you don't know how to get into drinking a lot of... So, little tidbit, little side fact of the day. If you want to drink a lot of water and you just think, oh, how could I drink that much water? I mean, I can't drink a gallon a day, right? There's no way. Let me give you a good tip. You just need to have that much water. I carry bottles like this around. It's bigger than my head. If you just have a bottle of water, you have to refill it constantly, or you have to go get another bottle of water, which is work. Like, it's dumb. It's not very much work, but it is work. It is something to do that you might not have time to do. So if you just get a giant bottle, about half a gallon or more, you only got to fill it up one time a day. And you are going to drink a gallon of water. Because trust me, the only reason that I wasn't drinking a gallon of water was because I didn't have a gallon of water at any given time. Anyway, that's my little rant about my book experience, how I went from didn't really read all that much to, oh God, I better read every book that's ever existed. And I think it was good. I think it's good for me still now. I mean, I've definitely changed in some ways, just based off the books that I've read in the last probably year and a half, 2 years. And I don't think there's really any bad ways. And I don't really think for most people that there would be any bad changes. I think if you just sat down and you could stand to read, I know some people, you just don't care. You know, you just don't want to read, don't care. And even if you did try, it would not be fun. I get that. But for me, I was able to really get into it, and wow, this is great. Why don't they make more of these? That's how I was with books. So, end of rant. Read a book, drink some water, clean your damn room.